All right, welcome back to Tanares RPG slash Tanares Adventures. So tonight we are going over the latest update that actually dropped just over a week ago on December 24th. So you'll one thing you'll notice is that the one that went on the RPG is actually slightly different than the one that's in Tanares Adventures, but it's super minor. Basically, all the information is included in the RPG side, and then the adventure side is significantly cut down, so that way it only includes the information that's relevant to Tanares Adventures. And this was actually requested by quite a few backers because there was people that just didn't, for some reason, that just upset them, and they didn't want to hear anything about the RPG or anything related to it or the pledge manager. And so they didn't do that. They actually do end up having a very short section talking about the pledge manager, but nothing like the previous update. So that's what they're going to continue doing here in the future. Anyway, so we're going to follow the Tanares RPG update specifically tonight. I got Code here with me. What's up, buddy? Good to see you. Been a while since we've had you here doing video.
Been a little too long.
I know, right? You busy doing all kinds of stuff now.
Yeah.
So anyway, so let's get into it in very typical Dragori fashion here. They have extremely long updates with tons of information to parse through. And so really it's a lot to go through. So I figured actually instead of just kind of going through each item, because from some of the length of my videos, it's probably a little easier to even just read the update if I just went through piece by piece. So I'm going to do a quick summary, and then we'll jump back into each item. So pretty much what this update covers is the Ed Greenwood's new character here, Arandaros Varant. I think I have no idea how you say his name, but that's what I'm going with. So they talk pretty extensively about his new character that he's developed and shown a picture, and we'll get to that later. Next up, they have the Pledge Manager. So basically, the biggest piece of information there is that the Pledge Manager is now opening the first week of February instead of December. Yep, I know that is a pretty big jump from what we were all thinking. So unfortunately, it's moved all the way to the beginning of February, and sounding like it's going to be closing end of March, or maybe even beginning of March. But it will close in March. So it's going to be a pretty tight window. We'll discuss more of that as we go on. Other big news, there is no delay to the Tanares campaign. So if any of the items that are related to Tanares Adventures, specifically Tanares Adventures items, board game, thing like that, no change at all. Still planned for the same Wave 2 development time frame. So if you're curious about that, that's what it is. Unlike, though, that the RPG items will be experiencing a 6-month delay, with estimated shipping basically happening end of August, September-ish time is what it's sounding like. And that will be specifically for Tanares RPG, and specifically the RPG items. And we'll talk more about that. Although, if you watch my previous update video, we actually did talk about this already. So really nothing new there for you guys on that front. Then next thing up is fulfillment schedule. They talk about the fulfillment schedule and kind of how that's broken up and related to the RPG. Really, we have to talk about that more in detail because it's a little too much just to kind of do a summary on. Last thing is Dragori's second to last thing, Dragori's development schedule. They talk about as well, just kind of like breaking down the months and how the months are kind of like they're working on different items. I mean, kind of in short, a lot of the development is being specifically focused on just finishing out the board game, getting everyone on Dragori's development design teams to finish out the board game, and then they'll have people switch back to the RPG to finish that out. All right, then last thing is specifically about the Tanares Adventures development and just talking mostly about a component of the game that we really hadn't heard that much about, and that is the city phase. There's a good section here about talk about city phase, assets, quest cards, and then moving on down here we get into kind of like the skill tree development progression of how it started out and how it's kind of progressed along into what it finally has come to here at the end. And then there's a section talking about the journal, which is basically kind of a story-filled section, which really isn't that relevant to... If you don't care about story at all, then maybe it's something that you could pretty much almost not use at all, as it's completely optional. And then milestones is something that they discuss here, and kind of how... there's different points in the game. So, for example, you can actually lose quests in this, which is different than Tanares, or I'm sorry, Arena the Contest, where if you lost the quest, you just ended up replaying it. There was no special, anything beyond that. So you just played it again, and or I mean, if you really wanted to, I guess you could have skipped it. But basically, the rules was that you would just replay it. And then they talk about the extra challenges or whatever for it. But anyway, that is the update here for or at least the quick summary for Tanares RPG. So if you are not interested in the details or you've already read them, then basically that's it. All right, so let's get back to the start here. So like I said, there is this huge section. Actually, I was surprised how big this section was. I don't know about you, Code, but they spent a huge section of this update just talking about this one character, what he looks like, what his motivations are, how he's going to interact with the characters, what his powers, are, all that kind of stuff, his plans, secret intents, and you even see like a miniature of this character here, which of course we'll be getting. And of course, like many people did notice, in the description of the character, they mentioned that I believe it's his left hand that has the tentacle, at least in the description, but the artwork shows his right hand. So my guess, a lot of people are saying it was the other way. My guess is that the description was incorrect. I think the description meant that the tentacles in or actually, wait, I think I have it backwards. So the description says it's in the left hand, but it shows in the right hand in the artwork and the miniature. So to me, it seems like it's supposed to be the right hand and not the left hand. Did you happen to notice that when you were looking at this update, Code?
I did not notice that, but I just going skimming through it right now. I do see.
Yeah.
They talk about his right hand fingers. Just
Yeah.
So I think it's just they got the right and left mixed up. It happens.
I mean, yeah, not that big of a deal.
But I am surprised at how much time, like how much they put into this character and revealing him. I thought we were just gonna get like a picture and a mini, and that was it. Not the whole backstory, what his intents are, and everything like that. So that was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, definitely a lot more story than I really expected. But I think they kind of wanted to show, some of the work that they're doing with it, and then as well as like how Ed Greenwood is contributing to the project, and the big thing that he's attached to here. So I think that was a big focus for them, especially because the news that they go on later talking about the slowdown to the RPG items and everything. Try to at least give you something pretty exciting to look at before you realize like, oh crap, we're not really going go in a lot of places, or at least it's going to be taking a little bit longer than we thought.
Right, and I think he's also supposed to be a big part of the RPG, so it's good to get that out there now and
Yeah.
give you something to look forward to.
Yeah, definitely. Very, very likely it'll be a pretty big character as part of the story. Okay, so next up here is the Pledge Manager and FAQ. So the Pledge Manager date, like I mentioned before, is being moved to the first week of February. Of course, we all thought it was going to be, originally we thought it was going to be November. Then it got moved to December. Now we're into February. And even Alex was telling me, even like right before, like the week before we started break or Christmas week, that he still had expected it, that it was going to happen before Christmas. So I think honestly, this isn't really something on their side. I think it's more on CrowdOx's side with this, that especially since the reasons that they use for using it is they say, we opted for better user experience with a shortened time frame than to collect orders for longer, but requiring to open the Pledge Manager a second time a few weeks later. So please ignore that part of the last update. Yeah, this is an important part that said we wouldn't collect shipping when the Pledge Manager opened. So for people that may have forgotten, they mentioned about how that you would be able to pay for your shipping later on after you already finished your order. So I think it was going to make it more confusing on one side, and there might have been some limitations potentially on what CrowdOx specifically could do. And then, of course, at the same time, Trigori is trying to get the lowest shipping possible, because honestly, like with the shipping world right now being as bad as it is, it would not surprise me if like people are going to look at their orders, you know, once they get into the Pledge Manager and go, holy crap, look how much, you know, shipping is costing. And especially, you know, for people that have VAT as well to pay for, it's probably going to be crazy expensive. But, you know, I don't know what the numbers are, so I can't specifically give anyone, you know, what that's going to look like. But, you know, if you've been following any other project, you already know that the insane prices of where, you know, you're talking about containers that were $5,000 a container and now up to like $25,000 a container.
Out of control.
Yeah, definitely. And they had hoped, of course, that, you know, that will improve later on in the year, and especially closer to after the Chinese New Year, which is kind of the time frame that Dragori is already pushing here for. Okay, so if you are just a Tanares Adventures backer and not a Tanares RPG backer, there's literally nothing you need to do. You don't need to go into the Pledge Manager or do anything. You can just, you know, sit back and keep waiting for your stuff to show up here. Hopefully in, you know, the shipping estimate's still the April, May, right? So that's when it's going to be leaving the factory in China and then going out. So it could be, you know, any number of months, right? Because last year everything was supposed to be shipping about March, and then things ended up sitting there until, what was it, like July? I think it was like July or late July or something was when some things started going out.
Yeah, late July, because for me, I didn't get my wave 1 till like September.
Oh, you're a really bad one too. You're way behind.
I got stuck on the second ship.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. You just never know. Never know.
You never know what's going to happen right now.
And then another point to note here is, if, you know, you didn't go into the RPG, but you want to and get some of those other items, you can. They try to point that out, that would be possible, but obviously you don't have to. Okay, moving on here. Let's see. So you'll complete your pledge. You'll pay for shipping. You'll pay for VAT all at once. There's not going to be some multi thing anymore. Basically, just hang tight until they send out the emails here early February, and then we should be paying for it. And basically, I mean, Dragori is pretty much as far as they can get in terms of that pledge manager, and that honestly, in my opinion, that month time frame is going to be extremely tight, and it's going to be very challenging for backers. So you guys really need to, you know, if you haven't been paying attention now, you need to get on board here, because there's going to be a short window for you to complete your order. And if you don't get that done in time, it's just going to be more challenging for you to do it later. So make sure that you get your order done, because it seems like it's going to be pretty tight. All right, so let's move on here. So RPG development and decisions. Specifically, they talk about how, you know, they're looking over everything, and they realize that there still was some more work that needed to be done. I mentioned this in my update as well, especially from the guest contributors providing a lot of help and changing things. So I know that there's some people that are pretty frustrated because they felt like this project was completely done. Now, honestly, if you look at any Kickstarter, almost all of them kind of do that. I mean, there's some I think there's one campaign I'm backing right now that gave us a timeline that was like, I think like 2 or 3 years out. And so that was very obvious that one was going to take like a really, really long time. But a lot of campaigns make it look like the development is pretty far along, even if it's not. Now, from the sounds of this update, it sounds like that they had almost all the work done, but they weren't super happy with what they were getting and from the feedback that they received from the guest contributors. So they wanted to make it even better. And the problem they have is that Tanares Adventures has to get out. Like they've delayed it too many times already. It's you know, like a thorn in the side. It has to get done, even though obviously we're all excited for it. It has to get done, and it can't be delayed anymore. So that's why they're kind of switching over to try to get all this wrapped up. So that's going to take up a number of months to be able to do, which means once, you know, the development and everything finishes and things are starting to get, you know, produced and then shipped out, basically then everyone's switching back to the RPG to get that out. So just, you know, not something people like to hear, but, you know, this is it's technically the first delay for the RPG, and it's going to make fulfillment here a little more challenging. We'll get to that here in a second. So I'll just address this now because it's been asked multiple times. Which rewards are getting the delay? The books, the RPG books, the GM-less deck, or aka the solo. Some people called it the solo mode because that's what it was called at one point. The like power decks, basically the decks of cards that has all the information for the new characters on them. They don't list it in here, but I'm pretty confident, like 80 or 90% confident, that items like the maps, those the rollable maps and everything, and the dice for the RPG are probably going to get delayed. And the reason why I say that is, what would be the point of some of the things are obvious, right? Like they can't get the GM-less mode done unless they have like the narrative book done. So you obviously can't send that. But things like the maps, you could receive the maps early, but what would be the point? Like,
Right.
Maybe you could use them to put some games together in Tanares Adventures, but like, that's not really the point of them. They're for the RPG. So it just seems like it would make no sense for them to send it out early. They might as well wait on it, make things a little bit better, polish it up better, and all that kind of stuff. Same thing with those extra dice. I mean, you can already get like the D20 set that they offer in the add-ons already. So you can purchase that separately if you just want D20s to play the board game. So you don't need the dice set either. So I'm expecting that one to sit. And then the last thing they specifically mentioned is the translations for the RPG. So those items will be coming later, but not obviously, you know, they got to finish what it normally says, so then they can translate it and send those. There was also some confusion about people thinking that, like, if you got some kind of translation of the board game, that would be delayed. That's not the case. You'll still get your board game. It's a little less clear exactly where the status is of some of the translations for the normal components, although they do mention about the core box, legendary box being completed or almost complete, and then the dragon collection that they're working on that. So it seems like they got most of that done. Now, Tanares Adventures, I'm not exactly sure where translations is related to that yet. So we'll have to follow up with that one. Okay, so fulfillment schedule. This is probably a part where a lot of people are going to get most confused, especially because I'm personally going to start calling it third wave. Because if you're somebody that has already been following along with all of the campaign stuff already and you're into the RPG, it just makes sense to call it like third wave, because that's really what it is. But if you're not participating in that, it may not make sense to you. So, but that's what I'm calling it, third wave. Anyway, so there's nothing you need to do if you didn't get any new RPG campaign rewards. Like I mentioned earlier, there's no change in the schedule for Tanares Adventures content. April/May 2022 is when it will be shipping. Same as usual. Returning backers with RPG rewards. No change for the board game components. 6-month delay on RPG items so this is third wave that we're talking about. Third wave for RPG items, and no additional cost. That's for returning backers that are getting both of those items. Now, new backers with only board game items, there will be no delay and no additional cost. You'll get the items with our Wave 2. So if you're just jumping into this campaign, you just want the board game stuff, then you'll get it with Wave 2 like everyone else. And this is the last one that when I saw this, I was personally not too happy about it, and messaged Alex about it, and he said that he'd try to get some more information for it once they come back from break this next week. But basically, it sounds like they're saying if you're a new backer who ordered both board game and RPG components, you will get all of it in third wave, unless you pay for a split shipping option, which as soon as I saw split shipping, it just made me like curl over in like pain.
Flashbacks.
Yeah. I mean, we've had so many difficulties with people not understanding, the current wave scheme stuff to begin with. And honestly, like, just discounting this section, it's still going to confuse people, right? Because we're already moving to third wave, whether you're returning backer or you're new backer. So we're already kind of headed into that train where we're going to have more pain of people. I see a lot of comments from backers, of course. And so I look at the comments that say, people, they're scamming us and blah, blah, blah. I haven't gotten my items. And then you come to find out that they never ordered wave 1, right? So of course you wouldn't get any items, but those people didn't understand that. And so they just, get upset, right? And if you're not following, of course you're not going to understand, but there's some level of like, you should be reading the updates of a Kickstarter. Like if you're gonna put money to a company, I generally think it's a good idea for you to kind of follow the development and follow what's going on. If you don't care about it at all, then why did you back it, right? Like, I guess maybe you wanted the stuff, but like if you don't follow it at all, do you know that you'll even get it to begin with? Like, is it a company that you feel like you can trust, through everything that you've seen so far? Because if you have, then it should already tell you that, the games are going to come. Like it's 100% happening. But if you're somebody that hasn't paid attention at all, then yeah, it probably does look like they're scamming you because you haven't been paying attention. So I don't know. What do you think about that, Code?
I mean, it's kind of looking at it a different way. If you're putting all this, I know it's not a cheap game by any means of imagination. So even if you get minimal amount of stuff,
Yeah.
it's not really cheap. So
Nope.
unless you just have money to throw around, which I'll come talk to me. I got a bank account you can dump your money into for saving.
Don't worry, he'll just dump it into Bitcoin anyway.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's so volatile. Just it's good to pay attention because you don't you don't want to get scammed by any companies because there's a lot of Kickstarters out there that have had issues in the past, whether they were intentional or unintentional.
Yep.
But luckily we know Dragori is not one of those companies. But
Yeah.
you still kind of want to know where your stuff is either way.
Oh yeah,
Should
for
always
sure.
because you don't want to one day be like, I ordered this game from like 2 years ago. Where is it? And go to find out, it's never coming. You know,
Yep. Yep.
or
Exactly.
there's massive delay. But I'm not saying that. So I know some people do a lot of Kickstarters and stuff, and sometimes I guess they get so many that some fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
But you would think that over time you'd say, hey, let me check in on this, even if it's been a while type deal. Especially
Yeah.
since now the updates are only every month.
Well, and even still, if you back a lot of projects, like, besides the fact that maybe you should already know about checking, in on projects, but if you already back a lot of different projects, then you probably already understand that projects get delayed all the time on Kickstarters. That's the normal, is projects getting delayed. It's incredibly abnormal for a project to ship or fulfill on time or early. Is probably even more rare.
I don't think it's very uncommon if something shipped early.
Yeah.
I think Kickstarter's motto is that it's not a store, it's to produce ideas type deal.
Yep. Yep.
So, a lot of this stuff isn't already made yet and you're buying it. So,
Exactly. So, especially because it is a lot of ideas, yeah, you just never you'll know that it's not something in hand. It's just something that someone wants to see at some future point. So, anyway, that's probably enough on that. But biggest thing from there, this last section here, we'll probably end up talking about again at some point. All right, let's get into Dragori's 2022 schedule preview. Starting off, of course, this is an estimate, just like the previous timeline that we had. It's all an estimate, so things can change here and there. They're just trying to give us a look into what they're working on, and at least have an idea of how things are progressing. But it doesn't necessarily mean, well, they said this was happening. It said finished production at this day, and that forward, it's in stone. So not the case. So anyway, they start off with January, where some of these things I actually already talked about in the last update, where they're talking about finishing miniature type molds and kind of finishing that up. Graphic work design, most intense graphic work design is made since texts are finally finished and proofread after polishes and last minute adjustments. So miniature making is ongoing, continues. So they're starting to kind of ramp that up. They're doing blind play tests, which I hope that we'll be getting some of that. I know that we've gotten a little bit of taste here and there, but be good to get a little bit more, just so that way we're kind of crossing those T's for them. And making sure that there's not some other little things that are kind of getting pushed out and completely unnoticed. So we'll hopefully have some information for that here. Most translations are completed for Core Box, Legendary Box, with Dragon Collection ones beginning. And then we'll get more up-to-date shipping quotes for ordering stuff for the Pledge Manager going into February. Factories printing components, especially language independent ones, which are easier to finish more quickly. And of course, the Chinese New Year is here and taking time to address setbacks in last components. So anyway, looking at some other items, the Pledge Manager is going basically then into March here. We're closing up, giving them the final print order number to the factory. And then send the files for most sensitive components, and begin translations of the final components. And then assembling of the first boxes will happen probably end of March. Production ends, obviously, sometimes there's hiccups in this stuff, so it really wouldn't surprise me if this more slipped toward end of April, maybe even May. And then while the board game, so then they're talking about the board game starting to be shipped out in May through April. So that's going to be kind of going through, and then they're going to be shifting back to the RPG to get all those other items done, all the stretch goal type stuff done as well, getting the adventure done. All that good stuff. And then they mention about maybe it's possible that it could be less than a 6-month delay for the RPG, just because the books generally don't take as long to manufacture. But, I don't know. I think that's potentially just being hopeful, but who knows? I honestly don't know exactly how far along things are and how much work they really want to change in Tanares RPG. So it's hard to really get a handle of where it's at. Okay, then moving on here, we have the city phase, which hasn't actually really been talked about. We see some pictures here, which of course people were kind of joking about looked like a cell phone game. I don't know. Do you think that? I thought, I actually kind of agreed. I saw that and I was like, yeah, it kind of does look like one of those little cheesy like cell phone game picture things you see when you're going into like the Google Play Store or whatever, and you're like, whoa, what is that?
Yeah, I thought that too. I was like, this looks like something I'd be playing in my mobile game on my phone or something.
They do mention, obviously, that the artwork is not finished, so that could improve before the end. But basically, the city phase is like a mini game, basically, that happens in between quests. And it kind of helps set up the whole adventure, like the progression and adventure aspect of the game. So it's not just about the heroes going into these different quests and battling and getting the different things inside these different dungeons and whatnot. But it also is doing this, like building up this city. And by doing this, you're unlocking, new heroes, you're getting different items, you're getting different armor, and things like that. And then you deal with different issues each week for it. But it is very much a mini game in the way that they say it should only take about 5 minutes to play through this part. Like if you're just kind of like getting into it, if you really want to spend more, you can. But you pretty much take like these city deck cards, the asset cards, and then quest cards, and that kind of makes up this whole like city phase. So you're assigning these assets to these different work tasks. So in some ways, I guess it to me, I don't know about you, Code, but to me it almost sounded a little bit like a worker placement type mini game.
I think that you hit the nail right on the head there with that. I think that's exactly what they're kind of aiming for with this.
Yeah,
Um,
because they say, right, about your performance and spending limiting resources will grant you resources, or you can sacrifice some of it to improve your performance in future city phases.
yeah, I'm kind of interested in this. I mean, at first, the city phase we didn't hear much about it, so I was like, oh, it must be like in 5e when you're just in between quests. You go to get some items and stuff. But now you're getting like almost. I don't want to call it like a mini game, but
Yeah.
um,
Well, you can call it a mini game because I think they actually call it a mini game in this. I think they actually call it in a mini game in this update. I'm not exactly sure where, but they do say that it takes 5 minutes, right? Like all this was designed to be in no more than 5 minutes.
I have a feeling that some people will be like, "Oh my God, this is gonna spend an hour on it," which you
I know,
can.
right?
But it's interesting to
Yeah.
see, but I think it.
Well, and we haven't actually seen it yet, too. So just to
Right.
kind of be clear to people, we have gotten to play like the quest aspect of Tanares Adventures to see how that's different, but we haven't actually gotten to play the city phase yet. And that is specifically one of the aspects I've been trying to get them to include as well for this Tanares Adventures like play early look session that we're putting together. And they are going to include that, so that way we'll get a look as to see what happens essentially in like a whole turn between doing the quests and the city phase and then going on to like the next quest. So you'll see here you can get some of these different asset characters that are used in different ways, I guess, for your game, but then also could be used for the city, and they have like these different stats here. Here's like a initial deck where it's just you get the 3 hammers. It's a normal soldier guy there, right? Iron Hand. And then you get these different characters where they'll progress with the quests. So for people that maybe don't know, the game is kind of broken up over like a calendar system of multiple weeks. And each week something's happening. You have to make different decisions based on what's happening. So here they show you exactly like, well, here's deck week 1. This is like the one of the quests here, the swamp. So this will set up the quests that you could potentially pick to do that. And like I said, is that kind of impacts like the story and some of the extra things that you can get there. Of course, these like lion dudes. What did you think when you saw these lion dudes?
It's like,
I actually kind of got a little bit of a laugh. I thought like, I don't know, it almost seemed like a silly like Mortal Kombat like joke or something to me.
yeah, it looks like wasn't it the most recent game like that color design, like the red, like the blue and red looking?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah.
It looks familiar. I don't know why.
It does. Yeah. So anyway, that's the city phase. Like I said, we'll probably get more into that once we get that mod that we can kind of start showing off in sections to everybody. So we'll get into that more. All right, next up is the skill trees section where they talked about the evolution of this. I mean, I could spend a lot of time kind of going over this, especially if you are interested. In fact, they quite a few updates ago in the Tanares Adventures campaign, they did a really big section talking about how they came up with like building a quest. And honestly, that's what this section reminds me of, is that same type of thinking of, well, we wanted to build these skill trees and make, characters unique, but we didn't really know exactly how we were doing it. And so they start, with all these triggers and stuff, but it was like way too complicated to have all these different things. So then they tried changing the tree to like, split things off, but make it a little more simpler. But there was still a lot of like these additional things that you had to do. And then finally coming back down here, they came up with the idea that instead of just having more things to do on your turn and more things to notice, you could use those in between turns to do something else. So the difference between this one and this one, I believe, is mostly the graphical design. But I think it's pretty close to the same thing. They took off some, I think, like the passive or whatever here. But so the idea is I play my turn, and then let's say it's now Code's turn, and I'm this healer character. Obviously, Code is my ally, so I will be able to, depending on which skills I've selected, I'll be able to do different types of abilities on Code's turn instead of my turn. So I can maybe it's actually really hard to see on here, but it says like for a single power cube, which by the way that was mentioned in this, and I specifically mentioned this to Alex after I saw someone's good comment, which I very much agreed with because I did not like the name. So previously they were all called power cubes, which was super general and not very special. And they decided to change it to mana, which is kind of, I guess, a slight improvement, but it at least it sounds a little bit better than just power cubes, because that's what they are. They're cubes. So anyway, it says after the roll, heal 7 on heal 7 I think ally. The target is what is it? Is shielded for +6 or something like that. It's hard to really see exactly what it says because the pictures are pretty small. But basically, the idea is you can help your other characters on their turns instead of you just sitting and waiting for your turn to come up again. Then also, while the game is taking its turn, so while the enemies are doing things, you can plan out additional things as well, like doing other heals or damage or moving type characters. It all depends on what skill tree you choose for that quest. Anyway, so as you use these, you'll have this system of where it's like an unflip ability, right? Where you'll end up doing like additional damage or healing or something like that. But anyway, the skill trees, like I'm explaining it horribly, and honestly, Dragori did the same in previous updates. But once you see it in real life and you start to see how it's played, it's actually and they say this in this update, it's the best part of like the new Tanares Adventures mechanics, because it makes it exciting to figure out different strategies to take down the enemies, but it's not just you waiting to do your turn, because that's right now what happens in Arena of the Contest is you do your turn and then you wait for other people to play, and there's not really anything to do, and so sometimes people kind of tune out. But then there's really cool combinations that you can do when it's not your turn, and then you can do like, crazy amount of damage or something else, and it's like, oh wow, if we do this and we do this, and we can all do it together. So if it's like me, Code, and Taishin playing, me and Code can team up our skills to help Taishin do it on his turn. So anyway, what was your opinion on the skill tree system, Code, from when we got to play?
It's fun as hell.
Yeah.
It was...
It's a little confusing at the beginning.
It was, but I would want to say there's not a lot of rules to it. There's not too much to it. And once you get used to it, it was awesome. It keeps you engaged. Like you were just mentioning, the old way, sometimes people would kind of veer off, get distracted. But this keeps everyone engaged. So when it's not your turn, even there's stuff for the enemy's turn. So it's not like, oh, the enemy takes a turn and whatever, whoever's handling that. It's, you gotta always keep engaged. So I think that was,
Yeah.
to me, this was a game changer and made the
Yeah.
game a lot more, at least felt more smooth overall because you're always engaged.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like a lot of games actually suffer, from this is the fact that, it'll have all these cool things and then everyone just kind of like sits around waiting until it's their turn. Again, I feel like I give a lot of crap to Gloomhaven as much as I actually do like the game. But there's quite a few times I've played Jaws of the Lion with my friends, for example, and I'm playing the Void Warden character, who's like the slowest character out of like the Jaws of the Lion characters, and she's usually the supportive character and stuff, but everyone else has already gotten to do like all their cool abilities and kill bad guys and whatnot, and then I'm gonna do something at the end, but everyone has already checked out. They're already like looking at their next cards, or they're already like shuffling their deck. And I'm like, well, hold on. You can't shuffle your deck yet. Like I can grant you actions. So maybe you need to have your deck available to use. And they're like, oh, okay. And it's just like everyone's already tuned out because it's not their turn, right? Like they've already done it and they're just waiting for the next turn. So I think this is a great system. And I hope this will get a lot of praise because it was a really fun aspect, and obviously we'll have to see more as we actually get more time with playing the game, but it was a fantastic system. Okay, so let's move on to the next subject here, which was a little bit about the journal book. In the summary, I actually basically gave away a lot of what it is. Basically, it is the optional content. It says, this book is optional complement. You don't need it to play the game or win its epic campaign. You may consult this book or not at any time, before, during, or after quests on the board, after you've put the game back on the shelf, or before you pick it up. So basically, this will provide you lots of other additional information about like the story and choices and how things kind of like meet up in some of these different groups and everything, but it's not really needed to play the game. So for people that don't care about narrative and story, this is probably something you can just stay away from. Personally, I think it's always good to have some idea, especially Tanares Adventures is going to be so much more, story focused, that it'd be a huge loss not to look at this book. Right, Code? Like,
I mean, considering selling point is a campaign, but
yeah, right.
I think most people will, but there are a few people who felt that they didn't want that much reading, or there was too much reading or something with the first game, and
Yeah.
I know they also talked about in previous updates making a shorter version, but maybe this is another alternative where you don't have to read anything, you just get into the game.
Yeah.
That's not something I personally will be doing. I would like to know the whole story as I'm playing a campaign.
Yeah. So you know what I was actually just thinking of as you mentioned that about the campaign, was I was thinking, why don't, like, it's always PvE versus PvP. Why can't PvP essentially have its own like narrative and campaign as well? Like, it feels like something that we could probably come up with, where you have like some kind of story of PvP, and maybe the other player, instead of just having the game play, you have another player that's playing the other elements. That'd be kind of interesting.
That would be interesting. I think that's
I mean, I don't know how balanced it would be, but
that's for another time. But yeah, something
Yeah.
to think about.
Okay, last thing here, I think, milestones. Basically, they talk about in this milestones section of where there's like additional side quests and stuff, which of course exists in Arena of the Contest, but apparently it sounds like it's going to be a lot harder to do these than it was in Arena of the Contest. So this is going to be for the people that, more hardcore into the game, want to get everything done, which will of course give you better resources and benefits than if you just do the main thing. But I guess the most interesting part, which of course we've already answered this before, but now it's 100% confirmed again. Yes, you can lose a quest in Arena of the Contest, or Tanares Adventures, I'm sorry. And that it can impact the game. So it says, in Tanares Adventures, we put in place sub-goals that will give you rewards, whether you win or lose the quest. So you'll still get something even if you lose, but obviously the difference won't be the same as if you won. But anyway, it's I think it's great that they offer that, because I feel like it's a little more like closer to that campaign-y narrative side than just saying, like what the current system is of, well, you have to win, right? There's no losing option, just moving on.
It makes it less linear.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, a lot more. Yes, a lot less linear, more sandboxy, which is pretty cool to see. Anyway, there's lots of cool art in here, of course, as we've been going over this. So you want to check that out, then definitely do that. But that is pretty much it. Yep. Happy New Year's, Kyle. Good to see you. In fact, I think that was the first thing I was supposed to say I had on my notes, and I skipped right over it. Happy New Year to everyone out there. I hope you guys all had a good last year, and this one will be even better. Of course, there's plenty of challenges for not just the game, but many other people. So hopefully things will just continue to improve this year. Obviously, we got a lot coming with Tanares Adventures, Tanares RPG, all shipping and being developed this year. Still hoping that at least with the Tanares RPG, it gets a little more risky that it gets done this year. But I'm sure with how far that they've gotten, that they should still be able to finish it before the end of the year. But just always keeping that possibility there. Anyway, that is pretty much it for the update. I have a PvE Arena of the Contest PvE tier video that I'm about to release. I've been working on it today. It's broken up into different rankings. And so the first video is only going to cover the D tier ranking. So when you see that, it won't be everything. It'll just be one. But that's because I'm going into each hero and talking about them, because I thought if I didn't really go into each hero, then it would just end up being, not really that helpful to explain why they're in that ranking. And with there already being like 28 heroes, or 28, 29 heroes or something, that's a lot to do in one video. So I ended up breaking it up. So anyway, that is coming up real soon, so be sure to check that out. The Tanares, or the PvP Tournament Season 2 is still chugging along. We have, I think, about 5 games left. So we're getting here pretty close. In fact, Code, you and Tyson should probably be playing here pretty soon. Probably like in the next week or so.
Next week, probably. Hopefully this coming week.
Yeah, exactly. So that game should be coming pretty soon, and then we'll have only a few left. So we might even be able to finish before the end of January, which would be good. And I think that's the big thing. Like I said, Tanares Adventures early look preview will be coming out hopefully in January. We'll kind of see as we actually get it. But anyway, that is it for tonight. If you haven't already, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. I appreciate that. And letting other people know about the channel. If they haven't seen this game before, let them have a look. They might really enjoy this. It's a great game for a lot of different audiences out there. Anyway, anything else you got, Code?
That's about it. Make sure you come see the me versus Tyson, as it's a rematch from the finals of the last tournament. So,
yep.
It's gonna be a big one. Tyson's going down, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, we'll see. But
we'll see.
Definitely should be a good match because you guys haven't battled it out in a while. So, all right, well that is it for today. So